Christmas decorations, and the shelves are much larger shelves. Plus, we have a little end display of seasonal Christmas ornaments out. Oops. And I find that tragic. I don't hate Christmas in and of itself. I commented before, I don't necessarily like how hyper-capitalistic it is, and the fact that it seems like the concept of spending time with your family is almost like on the back burner for it. I like receiving and giving gifts. I, however, hate the idea of someone having spent money on me. Um, I adore, the people who buy me gifts typically know me very well and get me things that, I really enjoy. But I feel bad about the fact that they wasted their money on something for me when they could have done plenty of other things with that money that would have made their lives happier. And so that's another reason I guess I don't like Christmas, because I know someone will feel compelled to spend money on me, and I don't really like that. I don't like people feeling like they need to buy me things. Even though, I like gifts, but I don't want someone to feel the need to buy me a gift. I feel like money could be used on so many better things than me. Honestly, though, I think, aren't those pretty much the only three, well, I guess New Year's would be another holiday that is pretty widespread celebrated in one way or another. There are plenty of other holidays, of course, but those are the only ones that I really see people, go all out for. St. Patrick's Day, you'll have a parade or whatever, but most people, I know a lot of people who don't even watch it. But pretty much everybody does something for Christmas. A lot of people greatly adore Halloween. Most people watch the New Year's celebration in one capacity or another. To some extent, people will share the Easter experience. I myself am not Christian, so I don't really have much sway to put towards the idea of Easter. I like the painting eggs and stuff like that, but it's not really, I don't know. I mean, I'm all for the idea of, spending time with family. So, I mean, I'm never gonna protest that idea. I don't feel like you need a holiday to share time with family, but I think if there's an excuse to spend time with family, I'm all for people taking advantage of that to spend time with family. And I come from a background where I'm lucky enough that I have a family that, really wants to spend time with me, and I'm happy and thankful for that every day. But, I guess, I mean, that's one way that for sure I would probably consider myself very lucky. I have a very loving family, and I definitely appreciate that. I don't really know. Like I said, okay, Valentine's Day. Being a person who's been alone as much of my life as I haven't really had much passion for Valentine's Day. I think it's great for the people who get to experience it, the people who get to share in that, capacity of life where, celebrating love is a wonderful thing. I do appreciate the idea of sharing love in any capacity. Love of friends, love of family, love of a significant other. But unfortunately for me, I've spent the majority of my life alone so far as romantic love, and I only have one local friend that I hang out with, really. I can't even get the majority of my extended family to visit on, like, or even say anything to me on my birthday or things like that, which, I mean, that's fine. Like I said, I don't think people should feel compelled to buy me gifts by any means, but, you know, I pretty much live in this little island of going and experiencing time with my coworkers and then spending time with family, coming down here and streaming for the two people who sometimes watch. And if Shin wants to join in, then Shin might join in. That's that's my social sphere. Oh, and my D&D group, but again, I go there, I interact with the D&D people, and then I leave. I don't have any significant connection to any of them, except I visited my DM at his work on one occasion, and the owner of the comic shop I talk with quite a bit. But yeah, that, and then, oh, and I guess I'm becoming some level of friends with the owners of the tabletop gaming store in town as well. Kitty. 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 See, like I don't have an angsty hatred for Valentine's Day. I know lots of people who, you know, who've been single their whole life, who've become, you know, very vitriolic to the holiday because there's a huge aspect of that that they don't get to experience firsthand. The you know, the celebration of that whole example of love that they don't get to experience. And for people who, you know, are inundated by that and don't get to experience it themselves, I can see why people get that way, but I can see how other people can also interpret that as petty. I can say, though, people who have been in love don't really have the knowledge of how emotionally frustrating it is for a day like Valentine's Day. Now, I have heard a completely legitimate point that, you know, a person who's been single the majority of their life totally has something to celebrate on Valentine's Day. Because, again, love doesn't have to mean romantic or, you know, physical love. It totally can be the more general idea of friendship, and I think that that is also a thing that very much needs to be celebrated. Friends are coming from a person who has one person who he gets to spend much time with face to face. Friends are colossally important. That's why sometimes I get particularly sad when Shin doesn't get to come over for several days, because I hate being shut in. I'm not exceptionally sociable. I can talk small talk with anyone, but I am particularly shy when trying to develop a relationship more than some person I say hi to. I don't know why I'm so guarded at the idea, but becoming friends with someone to the point where, you know, I would, you know, talk about my feelings with them, or I would go to their house even, or have them come to my house. I am not sure why I'm so guarded. I don't know if it's because, you know, I was, as many people who are streamers probably are, I was bullied as a kid quite a bit. That might have put me in a state of mind where I'm very guarded to the idea of socializing with people and developing any level of trust. I don't know, this is starting to sound like a therapy thing, But regardless, I don't go out and socialize much. I feel the desire to hang out with friends, but I don't feel the compulsion to go to places where people would be that I would meet, nor do I feel like I necessarily would socialize even if I was there. When I go to concerts, I socialize with the band because they're the reason I go. I don't, typically talk with other concert goers. When I'm at cons, I talk with the artists because that's typically why I'm there, is the respect for art and writing and things like that. I don't talk with a lot of the con goers. I don't do a lot of the socializing aspects. And now, especially with the one major convention I go to, I kind of monologued for a while in one of the chats I was on. The only convention that I go to every year has been discontinued. The leadership could not find enough people to volunteer, and it's really sad because it was a very successful convention, but it imploded basically, and so it's never happening again. And it was like the thing I went to annually, and I did kind of a monologue on the fact that I was like, I did this 4 years in a row, 3 days each year, so that 12 days is probably the 12 happiest days of the last decade for me, which sounds insane and hyperbolic, but I really do think it's true. It was a time where, I could just let all of my concerns just leave me alone and not really think about them. And I went and I had fun with people who had a similar interest to me, and I didn't feel any, stress to have to do anything. And I got to, work on more of a developing of a creative side of me. That con is the entire reason I now feel at all confident in my drawing skills. And I keep in mind that the last decade, for scope on what that means, in the last decade I got my Eagle. In the last decade I graduated from both high school and college. In the last decade I got my driver's license. In the last decade I turned 21. In the last decade I turned 18. In the last decade I got my first job. In my last decade I was in the only relationship I've ever been in. There are some very major benchmarks in my life that happened during the last decade, and I still would say the 12 days of the convention that I spent over the 4 years that I went every year for 3 days, they're probably are my top 12 days of that time frame, or at very least the top 15, every single one of them. And another example of scope is I locked myself out of my car an hour away from my family, who would be able to come and unlock the door for me. And I had horrible reflux one day that made it so I couldn't sleep, and it just felt burning in my head for like 3 hours. And even still, in the best days of my life. Oh, other things that happened in the last decade. I went to Japan once during that time. I went to Disney World would have been... Well, no. In the last decade, I did go to Disney World. In the last decade, I went on a month-long vacation. And again, still, I would put all 12 of those days as probably in my top 12 days. Probably every single one counts as a remarkable day where I was just, pure happy. And it's literally the only time, the last 2 years of the convention are the only times that I can think of in, also, again, the last decade, where I've felt genuinely excited about something. So, I mean, it was when I found out that it was canceled, discontinued, and never going to happen again. I mean, it really hurt. I mean, it's lingered for several days, and it's still just in my mind ever since I found out. And I expected it. I had a feeling it would because I'd heard rumors about it at the convention this year that they weren't finding the people to continue to staff it, and it might not happen. And so I was already mentally prepared back in May, and even so, learning about it, it I the announcement was made in September. I learned about the announcement in the middle of October. I learned about it, I guess it was closer to the end of October, closer to where we are now. I think it was the 20th, when I learned. And even with all of that, like, prep time and being able to mentally prepare myself for this to happen, it still hurts. But I just don't live close enough to any other conventions, so I'll just have to forgo that experience in my life again. And I think part of the reason that it lingers so bad is because, you know, the idea that those were such good days in my life, and knowing that I don't have a way to get to experience that anymore. I've ranted about this for a little while now, I guess. But it really did hit that hard. I mean, it's sad. Oh, I'm so close to level 21. Oh man, I got a lot of money. I am close to the 450,000. The 450,000 that I need. I suppose I've bored everyone, because all conversation has stopped. There's only a couple more plants that can even happen. As far as the stuff that's at the bottom, anyway. Well, I'm sure Xander is too. I don't really know what point there is in pathetically rambling about my pathetic life there is. I'm starting to become concerned what I'm going to do for the next 2 days, because, as I've said, Shin does have stuff going on, and neither of the next 2 days are common days for him to come over, and pretty much every game that I have left to do are games that I'd probably need Shin's help for. Which is bad, because actual Halloween is one of those 2 days, and I don't necessarily know what I'm going to do as a Halloween-themed game. If worse comes to worse, Halloween night, I might try to refinish that level of Monster Bash that Shin died standing right next to the exit for. I won't hold my breath for any success on that because I'm not particularly good at that game. I just love that game. If I could find a free Halloween-themed celebrity game, I'd be super down to... well, a free, good Halloween-themed game. That would be spectacular, but I don't know that that exists. It is very easy to make a very bad horror game, and it is very easy to make a really hokey game themed around a holiday. And so, as a consequence, I don't necessarily know that such a thing exists. Nor do I think that there's a chance that even if they do exist, that they are necessarily going to be good enough to bother with. Yes, Shin did get Left 4 Dead 2, but I don't know that he's going to be here in the next 2 days, so it might be a just not Halloween game. Because I'm not going to intrude when he's hanging out with other friends. I might pathetically whine in a joking manner, but I am not going to intrude on his other friends. I'm so close, like 1, maybe 2 more things and I'll have it. Did it. As I'm sure you can tell, I'm in a little bit of a funk. I almost wasn't going to stream, but again, I want to have something for every day in October, and I just don't know what to do. Another letdown is The Last Door is on sale today. I bought Season 2 of The Last Door 2 days ago. It was not on sale then. The refund thing doesn't work too well with that, and I bought The Last Door in combination with other things, so, I will not be getting the money back on that. I mean, the game is worth the money, so I'm not let down in that sense. I'm more let down in the sense that I could use $6 more. $6 would buy me work caffeine for 3 days. So $6 is significant. $6 is, you know, not a small amount of work. I mean, if you think about the fact that a person works 9 hours a day, well, 8 hours a day plus 1 lunch, and they're away from their home for 9 hours of their day. Unless you're talking like 2 minutes or 3 minutes of work, the amount of time that you work to make $6 when you're in a job like me anyway, to make $6 is, you know, I mean, that's a lot of work. I was actually talking to my dad earlier today about it's weird how 3 days can be so short, yet 9 hours can be so long, and it's true. Again, I'm happy with the job I have insofar as I like the people I work with for the most part. I like what I get to do. In many respects. I like, learning the things I learn and getting to have the variety of experiences I get to have on days when we're not swamped. Uh, but I'd much rather be home. I mean, who wouldn't? But it's an unfortunate fact of life, especially because of the fact that this is the first job I've had where I'm actually insured medically. And that's a super colossal important thing, especially now that I'm old enough that that matters. Um, Once you get to the age where insurance won't cover you anymore, your parents' insurance won't cover you anymore, I will tell you that the last year looking for a job has been completely terrifying to me. I mean, that was the biggest thing to worry about for me, was having medical insurance. Because if something happens and you don't have insurance, it's a huge, colossal disaster. I mean, you could bankrupt a family with the need for one surgery. I mean, it's that possible of a thing. And since freak things happen, that little bit, I mean, it's scary to think that people live in a world where, you know, if you have either subpar or no insurance, people might wish to die from a bad enough medical situation instead of being cured simply because of the burden it might put on their family as a consequence. And so, I'm not going to get into political discussions on that kind of stuff, but being in that world of, oh, god dang it, being in that world of where that is a very real concern, that medical care costs that much, and that insurance is almost, an imperative. I mean, now in the United States, it is a legally required thing to some extent, or at least the options to have some sort of medical care are required. But the living in that world, though, where you're not sure if you're going to get insurance and you're going to have to figure out what to do. I mean, it was very scary. And when I lost the last job I had where I could have gotten insurance, especially because of something so BS and out of my hands, I almost had a significantly long series of panic attacks during the time where I was looking for that last job. And my depression was so bad that I had days where I couldn't get out of bed. So, I mean, getting to that point in your life is terrifying, dude. Never have the need to grow up. Grow up if you have to. Once you get to the point where you have to grow up, grow up. But never have the need to grow up. Live a life where you don't have those concerns. My recommendation is to be born into a wealthy family. I endorse it wholeheartedly. Be born into a wealthy family that has no financial concerns. That is my recommendation to everyone. Retroactively, have all of your families discovered a massive oil spring under the earth or gold mine in their backyard or historical treasure and don't have any cares in the world. That is my PSA for the day. Be so wealthy that you don't have any cares in the world. Oh, and don't be a jerk. That's probably my number one rule. Don't be a jerk. I am a hypocrite, but don't be a jerk. Go away. Go away, bat. Go away. bunny. Hmm. But yeah, I really don't know what I'm gonna stream tomorrow or the day after. That's another thing that keeps coming back to mind. I wanna finish this month out having, followed my rule with the exception of the Terraria fluke. Since I forgot that this game or this computer didn't have the save, that it was my older computer that had the save for Terraria. Um, which I might try and hop on Terraria again. I might do that as a thing because the Halloween slimes and rabbits are gonna start being a thing now. And I think there's Halloween zombies too. I don't remember. Uh, if someone has an account where they want to just, give me last tier armor, I mean, I earned it all legitimately at one point. I just want to do something so that way I can dig around, complete the goals, and start making a Halloween house is what I wanted to do, but I just wasn't that far, and there's definitely no way I would be able to fight the um, Halloween mission in my current state. You couldn't fight the Halloween monsters with copper armor. You would essentially, see them appear and then immediately die. You need hard mode armor to be able to do anything. And so that was what happened with the Terraria thing, and I don't have an account that has the resources for it. Hmm. I might search Ichio again. Maybe they've had some sort of Halloween game jam or something that resulted in some new stuff. Yeah, I might do that here in just a little bit. See if I can find something. I wish that Shin had had more reaction to Antumbra and Pac, especially Pac-Man.exe. Everyone I've seen has like really freaked out by that red ghost. I'm gonna switch. Oh, that's an interesting screen. Be right back.